Is history calling you a monster? Did you poison a rival? Invade a neighboring kingdom? Attempt to overthrow the government? Have your enemies mysteriously disappear? Don't worry. At Villain Rebranding Agency, we've spent centuries helping history's least lovable people become complicated. Queen who murdered her rivals? Visionary leader? Power-hungry advisor? Misunderstood administrator? Pirate terrorizing innocent sailors? Maritime entrepreneur? Conquering warlord? Expansion specialist? Ordered thousands executed? Strong management style? Need a dramatic backstory? We'll give you childhood trauma. Need sympathy? We'll add sad violin music. Need redemption? Congratulations! You're getting your own live-action remake. Our consultants have successfully transformed tyrants into anti-heroes, pirates into lovable rogues, and villains into misunderstood icons with just enough emotional flashbacks to keep audiences arguing on the internet for years. Remember, history is written by the victors. Hollywood is written by screenwriters. Call Villain Rebranding Agency today, because every dictator deserves a redemption arc. According to somebody, Villain Rebranding Agency, TM. We can't change what you did, but we can definitely improve your Rotten Tomatoes score.
Disclaimer. Welcome to another episode of people discovering that history was somehow even stranger than Disney. No, we're not claiming Snow White fought 6th century Frankish queens. No, Captain Hook didn't have a LinkedIn profile that said professional pirate. No, Scar wasn't secretly running the Zulu kingdom. We're simply exploring the real historical figures, rulers, conquerors, and legends whose lives, reputations, or cultures resemble some of Disney's most memorable villains. History is messy. Fairy tales simplify it. Hollywood adds a soundtrack. If your favorite villain turns out to have borrowed a few pages from real history, don't blame us. Blame humanity. Now let's see who inspired the nightmares.
Disney villains versus history. The real people behind the world's most iconic animated villains. Disney villains are unforgettable. A jealous queen obsessed with beauty. A tyrant screaming for executions. A pirate feared across the seas. A dark sorceress accused of evil. A power-hungry royal advisor. A murderous usurper. A ruthless conqueror from the edge of civilization. Most audiences assume these characters sprang entirely from the imagination of talented artists. The truth is far more interesting. Behind many of Disney's greatest villains stand real queens, kings, pirates, generals, rulers, and conquerors whose lives were every bit as dramatic, and sometimes far more terrifying. Some inspired the characters directly. Others lived in the same cultures, reflected the same legends, or committed acts that made Disney's versions seem almost tame. Today we're separating historical fact from animated fiction. These are the real stories behind the villains. Welcome to the Pizzaverse.
Disney villains versus real history. Let's take a look at the inspiration behind 7 of Disney's devious baddies and meet the real historic antagonists who hail from similar cultures and committed equivalent evil deeds. Grimhild, the evil queen from Disney's first animated feature, 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, is the archetype villain. The jury is still out on Gal Gadot's portrayal of this iconic role. The story is based on a German folktale recorded in the Brothers Grimm's 1812 book, Children and Household Tales. The design of the film suggests a setting in the 1500s. The evil queen's look was inspired by a statue of Uta von Ballenstedt on the facade of Nuremberg Cathedral. She was an 11th century noblewoman and was said to be the fairest in medieval Germany. But she wasn't particularly evil. We have to go back to the 6th century to find a royal who truly lives up to the evil queen's diabolical deeds. Fridegund was born into a poor family and was either captured or sold into slavery. While she was scrubbing pots in the palace kitchens, the strawberry blonde beauty caught the eye of King Chilperic. He ruled over Neustria, a Frankish kingdom in the north of modern France. When Queen Galswintha walked in on her husband in bed with the scullery maid, she was outraged. The next morning, Her Majesty woke up dead. She had been strangled, probably on her husband's orders. 3 days later, the former slave girl stood at the altar, bedecked in her predecessor's jewels. The new queen, fairest in the land, silenced anyone who brought up her humble origins. She gave birth to 6 children, but the regicide did not go over well, particularly with Queen Galswintha's sister, Queen Brunhilda. She was married to King Chilperic's brother, King Sigebert, who ruled over the neighboring kingdom of Austrasia. The 2 women began a bloody feud. Sigisbert and Brunhilda marched to Paris to push their in-laws out. But Fridegund had a talent for revenge and poison. She hired 2 boys to go to King Sigisbert and claim to be defectors. At the time, everyone carried a small knife on their belt for eating and hunting, so royal guards thought nothing of allowing the armed boys into the king's tent. But their blades were impregnated with wolfsbane and snake venom. It only took a small cut, and the king was mortally wounded. Chilperic and Fridegund reclaimed Paris. He was so indebted to his cunning wife that he handed her considerable power. Brunhilda was imprisoned. But Prince Merafch, Chilperic's son from his first marriage, rescued and married his aunt in the hopes that she could help him gain the throne. Thus, Brunhilda became Fridegund's stepdaughter-in-law. The queen was determined that only her own sons should rule, so she badgered her husband to take his army and surround the newlyweds. The prince was captured, tonsured, and sent to a monastery, but Brunhilda got away. In 584, King Chilperic met with a deadly accident during a hunt. Brunhilda might have had something to do with it. Furious, Fridegund marched her army towards Brunhilda. The queen personally raided villages with her men and burned the city of Champagne to the ground. She ordered her soldiers to walk by night, carrying tree branches as camouflage to surround her rival's army. At daybreak, Brunhilda's soldiers were slaughtered, but she managed to escape again and continued to rule over Austrasia as regent for her son and then her 2 grandsons. After 45 years of rivalry between the 2 queens, Brunhilda won by outliving her stepmother. Fridegund died of natural causes in 597. But unlike Snow White, Brunhilda's rule grew increasingly ruthless. Her people turned against her and sided with Fridegund's son, King Clothar. In 613, he captured Brunhilda and ordered the 70-year-old queen to be executed by having her hair and arms tied to a horse and dragging her through the streets. Not much of a happily ever after. Plotting the downfall of your enemies sure can work up a sweat. Unfortunately for Queen Fredegund, modern deodorants were not invented until 1888, so she was probably pretty stinky under that gorgeous gown.
Is your kingdom constantly under attack by curses, dark magic, questionable royalty, and random old women carrying dangerous knitting equipment? Well, congratulations, sweetheart. You may be living inside a medieval horror story. Introducing the fairy tale safety system. Medieval protection for modern problems. For centuries, royal families ignored every warning sign imaginable. Mysterious fairy shows up uninvited. Hey, let her in. Ancient prophecy about a spindle? Nah, what's the worst that could happen? Strange prince climbing through enchanted death thorns? Sounds romantic. Fantastic decision-making process, by the way. With the fairy tale safety system, you can finally protect your kingdom from centuries of catastrophic fairy tale stupidity. Our professional spindle detection technology, TM, immediately alerts your castle staff when suspicious knitting activity is detected within 500 yards. Warning. Warning. Potential cursed grandmother approaching. Our patented Constant Castle security package helps prevent emotionally devastating plot developments before they happen. No prince enters the tower without proper authorization, because apparently nobody in medieval Europe believed in locking a damn door. And for families concerned about magical retaliation, our fairy invitation verification system carefully screens all supernatural guests before birthday parties. If your glowing magical ass ain't on the scroll, you ain't getting in. But wait, there's more. Order now and receive the Ogress Family Dinner Prevention Kit absolutely free. Because if somebody at the royal banquet starts whispering, "Eat, you are eating your own," you got bigger problems than table manners. Each kit includes holy candles, Shunar emergency therapy monks, anti-curse garlic, Huanai Kari, one emotional support goat, and a complimentary copy of So Your Fairy Tale is Actually a Horror Story, a best-selling medieval survival guide. And remember, true love does not usually arrive unannounced on horseback at 3 in the morning. That's called trespassing. Stop the curses. Protect the kingdom. And maybe, just maybe, put some damn security around the unconscious princess. Fairy tale safety systems. Because somebody in these stories should have called the cops.
And now, back to history. The Queen of Hearts from Disney's 1951 film Alice in Wonderland is based on Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, published in 1865. Author Lewis Carroll created the tyrannical, tantrum-throwing queen as a thinly veiled satire of his own monarch, Queen Victoria. She had a sheltered childhood under a controlling mother. When she inherited the throne at 18, Victoria displayed a strong streak of imperiousness. The monarchy's place in modern society was very much in question. Previous generations of Hanoverians had gotten in the way of progress and made a mockery of themselves. The young queen started off popular, but made many early missteps. She caused controversy by favoring ladies-in-waiting from the party of the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne. Monarchs were not supposed to show political favoritism. Next, she humiliated Lady Flora Hastings by accusing her of being pregnant out of wedlock. Victoria looked pretty bad when Flora died of a liver tumor. The queen somewhat repaired her image by marrying her handsome German cousin, Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. She had to propose to him, as it would have been improper for a man to ask for the hand of a monarch. Their marital power dynamic was a puzzler for Victorians, who clung feverishly to traditional gender roles. The Queen herself fervently believed that women had no place in politics or even in the voting booth. Yet she didn't feel this rule applied to her. She was demanding and threw frequent tantrums. This marital dynamic plays out in Wonderland with the cross and bossy Queen of Hearts and her meek, shrinking king. By the time Carol's book was published, Albert was 4 years in his grave, having died of typhoid fever at 42. Victoria deeply mourned his loss, wore black for the rest of her life, and fled to Scotland to escape her duties as head of state. Her popularity hit an all-time low, with many wondering why their tax money was going to pay for a queen who didn't work. One Republican hung a "For rent" sign on the gates of Buckingham Palace. It was in this climate that the ridiculous Queen of Hearts struck a chord with parents across Britain. Victoria wasn't actually going around bellowing, "Off with their heads," for minor offenses. But the satire called back to her ancestors, like Henry VIII and Mary I, who really did have overarching rights over their subjects' very lives. The fictitious queen's fury over the shade of her roses is a reference to Queen Margaret. During the Wars of the Roses in the 1400s, her house, the Lancasters, used a red rose for their symbol, while their enemies, the Yorks, used a white rose. Painting white roses red is rich with historic symbolism. Carol's book also references Victoria's famous dislike of children. Per dynastic obligation, she gave birth to 9, but frequently referred to babies as ugly and frog-like. In the story, a baby turns into a pig, and the Queen much prefers it that way. Despite the many thinly veiled jabs, Queen Victoria was fond of Carol's popular books. But when her youngest son, Prince Leopold, fell in love with Alice Liddell, the real-life inspiration for Alice, the Queen put her foot down and instead pushed him to wed a German princess. Captain Hook from Disney's 1953 classic Peter Pan is also based on a popular British children's story. The play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up, was penned by J.M. Barrie in 1904. Originally, Peter, the immortal nymph who lures children away from their families, was the villain. But Barrie knew that children loved pirates, so he added Hook into a small upstage scene while sets were being changed. Actor Gerard du Maurier, who played George Darling, persuaded Barrie to give him the additional role. Hook was a hit and became Peter's arch-nemesis. Many productions since have double-cast Mr. Darling and Captain Hook, including the Disney movie, in which both are voiced by Hans Conrad. This became a commentary on the antagonistic role of overbearing, unsympathetic fathers. Captain Hook's aristocratic swagger, flowing raven wig, and lacy cravat were copied directly from King Charles II. The 1911 novel Peter and Wendy says of Hook, "In dress he somewhat aped the attire of Charles II, having heard it said in some earlier period of his career that he bore a strange resemblance to the ill-fated Stuarts." Later adaptations even implied that the captain was the king's illegitimate son. Charles spent a decade on the run in France after his father was beheaded in the Civil War, but Brits grew bored of the new puritanical Republican regime and invited the prince to restore the monarchy. He was the king who brought back partying, but he wasn't particularly villainous. Sure, the Puritans disapproved of His Majesty's many mistresses, check out my video, but Charles was generally viewed favorably and even seen as a hero for rebuilding London after the Great Fire of 1666. Captain Hook's devious characteristics were taken from real-life pirates who stalked the Seven Seas during the Stuart era, particularly Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. He was likely born into a wealthy English family and well-educated. He served Charles's niece, Queen Anne, as a privateer during the War of Spanish Succession. By 1716, the growing Triangle slave trade brought Edward to North America. He captured a French merchant ship and renamed it the Queen Anne's Revenge. He and his crew became notorious for savage attacks on ships from Virginia to the Caribbean. Blackbeard sported thick, obsidian facial hair, thus the nickname. He was over 6 feet tall and reportedly tied lit slow fuses under his hat during battle to frame his head in terrifying sparks and smoke. Blackbeard crafted a fearsome reputation, but his reign of terror didn't last long. In 1718, the British Army killed him in battle, and his head was tied to the bow of the British ship as a warning against piracy. Though Blackbeard's villainous life was cut short, his legend grew, particularly regarding a vast treasure he supposedly buried somewhere along his route. It has never been found, but his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was discovered off the coast of North Carolina in the 1990s. Hundreds of artifacts were recovered, including navigational devices, cannons, and swords, but not much treasure. Maleficent is the mistress of all evil in 1959's Sleeping Beauty. She was based on a similar but unnamed evil fairy godmother from the original Sleeping Beauty folktale, first recorded by Charles Perrault in 1697 in Stories or Tales of Past Times. Disney dubbed her Maleficent from the Latin maleficentia, meaning doing evil. Her name may also have been drawn from a mythological French nefarious fairy, Melusine. Rather than opt for a traditional old hag, animators crafted Maleficent as a beautiful but menacing cross between a femme fatale and a vampire bat. Her devilish mystique is enhanced with the addition of a raven named Diablo. Maleficent is voiced by Eleanor Audley, who also played Lady Tremaine, Cinderella's evil stepmother. But her look was inspired by actress Maila Nurmi, aka Vampira, a late-night horror host and personality who was copied by Morticia Addams and Elvira. In the live-action remake, Angelina Jolie took over the role of Maleficent as a sympathetic, misunderstood creature who is trying to protect herself and her realm from humans. This rewrite echoes the altered perception of hundreds of real women from history who were once feared as witches, but are now seen as unfortunate victims. The historic lady who best matches Maleficent is Eleanor Cobham. Like Maleficent, she was rather more concerned with the health of a royal child than she should have been, and she was terribly vilified for it. Eleanor was born around 1400 into a minor noble family. She served as a lady-in-waiting to the wife of Prince Humphrey, younger brother to King Henry V. Eleanor became the prince's mistress, and he scandalously annulled his first marriage to wed her. When King Henry died, Humphrey became regent for his young nephew, King Henry VI. He and Eleanor were now just a heartbeat away from the throne, and they were anxious to know what the future had in store. Eleanor visited 2 famous astrologers to get her fortune told. In the 15th century, astrology was tantamount to rocket science, so it was taken very seriously when they predicted that the 19-year-old king would fall ill and die, making way for Humphrey and Eleanor to become king and queen. When rumors of the prophecy reached the king, he was alarmed. He had his own astrologers assure him that no such calamity would occur, and he had Eleanor and her astrologers arrested on charges of treasonable necromancy. Eleanor was locked up in Leeds Castle. Next, she was accused of visiting a woman named Marjorie Jourdemain, known as the Witch of Eye, who had given her a potion to help her conceive. She was also accused of using witchcraft to seduce the prince from his first wife. The charges against Eleanor were likely exaggerated to censure her ambitious husband, but that didn't help her innocent accomplices. One of the astrologers died in the tower. The other was hanged, drawn, and quartered. Marjorie was burned at the stake. As a noblewoman, Eleanor got off relatively easily. She was forcibly divorced from her husband and stripped of her titles and wealth. Then she was made to walk barefoot through the streets of London on 3 consecutive market days, while crowds jeered and humiliated her. She held a lit candle to signify her penance, a punishment usually reserved for sex workers. This event was an inspiration for Cersei's Walk of Shame in Game of Thrones. Finally, Eleanor was imprisoned for life at Baemaris Castle, where she died at 52. Jafar from the 1992 movie Aladdin was based on stories from 1001 Nights. This collection of Middle Eastern folk tales was originally compiled during the Islamic Golden Age, 700 to 1300. The overarching narrative is of a fictional Persian sultan whom, after discovering that his wife was unfaithful, decides to marry a new virgin every night, take her to bed, and then have her beheaded in the morning. After disposing of numerous noble ladies, the sultan weds his vizier's clever daughter, Scheherazade. While in his majesty's bed, she tells him a captivating story. But at dawn, she stops at the cliffhanger, so her husband must keep her alive if he wants to know the ending. For 1001 Nights, she continues this pattern, telling a variety of stories to stave off death for one more day. Finally, the Sultan falls in love with Scheherazade, and they live happily ever after. One of the most popular tales within the tale, Aladdin's Wonderful Lamp, was not actually part of the original story, but was added by French writer Antoine Guélandon in 1717. The antagonist in his version is a sorcerer who tricks Aladdin into a booby-trapped cave to retrieve a genie-filled lamp. Disney developed this villain into the Sultan's evil vizier, or advisor, and named him Jafar. He is based on a real royal vizier, Jafar ibn Yahya. He was born in 767. He inherited the position of vizier to Harun al-Rashid, Caliph of the Abbasid Caliphate, who ruled over much of North Africa and the Middle East. Jafar was an innovator and introduced Indian science to Baghdad. He obtained knowledge of papermaking from Chinese prisoners of war and opened paper mills, which aided the spread of information. So far, Jafar doesn't sound like much of a bad guy. But in 1803, he did something so heinous that the Caliph turned on him. Jafar ibn Yahya was beheaded at 36. It's not clear what he did, but there are rumors that he had an affair with the Caliph's sister. Jafar ibn Yahya lived on in 1001 Nights. He appears as a character in several stories, including The Tale of Ataf, where he goes on a grand adventure, and in The Three Apples, where he solves a murder. But Disney wasn't the first to pull Jafar over to the dark side. In another adaptation of 1001 Nights, the 1940 movie The Thief of Baghdad, Jafar is an evil vizier who kidnaps the princess and tries to usurp the throne using dark magic. The character is played by the deliciously devious, though German, Conrad Veidt, who greatly influenced Disney Jafar's malevolent looks, though he did not have the benefit of a comic relief parrot named Iago. Scar from 1994's The Lion King is the most iconic animal villain. Creators at Disney desired to make an animated film featuring the fauna of sub-Saharan Africa. So, naturally, they based the story on William Shakespeare's 1601 play, Hamlet. As in the famous tragedy, a prince avenges his father's murder at the hands of his uncle. But medieval Denmark was swapped out for the bright colors of the African savanna. And instead of a depressed prince, Hamlet is a cute lion named Simba. The ghost becomes Mustafa. Queen Gertrude is Sarabi. Ophelia is Nala. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Timon and Pumbaa. And of course, the devious uncle, Claudius, who steals the throne and the queen, is now Scar. Disney added several creative touches to make the insidious feline a great villain. Several legendary actors were considered for the meaty role, including Tim Curry, Malcolm McDowell, Alan Rickman, Patrick Stewart, and Ian McKellen. But Jeremy Irons ultimately voiced Scar to comic and chilling perfection, as did Chiwetel Ejiofor in the 2019 live-action remake. His backlit, goose-stepping hyena army during the song Be Prepared is an unsettling reference to Adolf Hitler's Nazis. The hyena Third Reich has some basis in nature. Lions and spotted hyenas are the dominant carnivores in many African ecosystems. But the two species are competitors and are not known to team up. Groups of hyenas do join forces to attack single lions, so Scar's gruesome death at the jaws of his former minions is scientifically accurate. Scar's closest royal human match from history is Shaka Zulu. He was born in 1787, the eldest but illegitimate son of King Zinsongahona of the Zulu in modern-day South Africa. When Shaka was a child, he and his mother were sent away. He trained as a warrior and had the bright idea to cut a traditional spear shorter into a deadly stabbing implement. Once fully grown, Shaka returned to confront his legitimate half-brother, King Sugojana. Shaka wasted no time in stabbing his sibling to death with his short spear. Now on the throne, Shaka, much like Scar, was a devastatingly bad leader. He turned the Zulu into a militaristic society and led them to conquer and subjugate other tribes. His reign from 1816 to 1828 was a time of violence known as the Crushing, during which the region was greatly depopulated. He devised a particularly brutal execution for one of his enemies. He locked her in a house with a pack of hyenas, who devoured her. Many were unhappy with his despotic leadership, and Shaka faced numerous assassination attempts. After being wounded, the king was treated by a visiting English explorer. He was grateful and fascinated by European medicine and technology, so he permitted the English to settle in his kingdom. This opened the door for the English conquest of the Zulu in 1879. In 1827, Shaka's beloved mother died. Broken by grief, he ordered no crops to be planted or animals milked. Cows were slaughtered so that calves would know the sadness of losing a mother. The king even ordered any women who became pregnant to be executed. Faced with starvation and slaughter, the Zulu rose up against their king. Shaka was assassinated by his brother, Prince Dingen, who took the throne and established a new royal capital on the slope of Lion Hill. Shan Yu is the conquering villain in 1998's Mulan. The movie is based on the Chinese legend of Hua Mulan. In the ballad, an aged father is conscripted, so his daughter, Mulan, disguises herself as a man in order to take his place in the army. For 10 years, she distinguishes herself in battle against the nomadic hordes that threatened China's northern frontier throughout much of its history. The ballad gives few specifics on the enemies. The caricature of the dreaded northern barbarian was well known to Chinese audiences. Ha Mulan is honored by the emperor and offered a position in his council. Instead, she returns to her family and reveals her true gender. The folk heroine first appeared in literature from the Northern and Southern Dynasty era, 420 to 589, but the Disney film borrows elements from numerous eras. Somewhere along the way, they got their historic wires crossed. They named the enemy army the Huns, and numerous sources claimed that Shan Yu is based on the most famous Hun leader, Attila. But in reality, Attila the Hun threatened Eastern Europe and the Roman Empire, and never ventured as far east as China. Many groups in Central Asia have been referred to as Huns, a word meaning people in the Turkic language. But if and how these groups are connected to Attila's Huns is controversial. There was a mighty northern army called the Xiongnu, led by a fearsome warrior called Modu Shanyu. He threatened the Han dynasty of what is now China, and had a lot more in common with Disney's Shan Yu than just his name. But he lived around 200 BCE, centuries before Mulan. The army she was facing in the ballad was the Roran Cognate. Shan Yu and his soldiers share many characteristics with this group. They live off the land and are expert horsemen. They wear skins and furs, and Shan Yu's animal sidekick is a trained Saker falcon. Disney villains sure love their birds. This bird of prey is a symbol of power and freedom in Mongolian culture. They were crucial for scouting, hunting, and military communication. Unfortunately, Disney's Huns are also riddled with stereotypes. This was a rare instance in which the studio applied their villain filter, green-gray skin, yellow eyes, and elongated features, not to a single villain, but an entire group of people. And this portrayal has not been well received by actual Mongolians. In the 2020 live-action remake, Disney attempted to correct these cultural insensitivities by accurately renaming the enemy army, the Rorans, and their leader, Bori Khan. He is still a fictional character, but is more in line with an actual historic leader, who came a few centuries after the ballad, but is considered a hero in the region, Genghis Khan. He was born Temujin around 1162. His father died when he was 8, and his family was abandoned by his tribe. Still, he managed to marry Borta, the daughter of a powerful chief. His charismatic personality attracted allies, who came to his aid when Borta was kidnapped. After rescuing his beloved wife, Temujin rose to power and took the title Genghis Khan. He consolidated nomadic tribes into a single mighty army, and together they ravaged the Silk Road. The threat of Mongol invasion haunted Chinese dreams for centuries. The Great Wall existed as a series of fortifications as early as the 700s BCE, but Genghis Khan was a threat like they'd never seen before. He burned and pillaged villages and enslaved thousands. Unlike Shan Yu, Genghis Khan succeeded in defeating the Jin dynasty and taking over China. He controlled the largest contiguous empire in history and administered it well. He created a meritocracy, which was well connected by a Pony Express-like system. Once he was in control, peace and trade flourished in his empire. Genghis died in 1227, after 21 years as Khan. His descendants ruled for a few more generations, but without a mighty leader, the empire fell apart. China redoubled their northern defenses, and the Great Wall was completed by the Ming Dynasty between 1368 and 1644. So the likes of Shan Yu and Genghis Khan would never again conquer China.
Disney gave us unforgettable villains. History gave us the originals. Some rulers poisoned rivals. Some ordered executions. Some conquered nations. Others became monsters only after centuries of legend transformed them. The fascinating part isn't discovering where Disney borrowed ideas. It's realizing that real history rarely divides people into heroes and villains quite so neatly. The truth usually lives somewhere in the uncomfortable space between myth, propaganda, politics, and memory. Sometimes history inspires fiction. Sometimes fiction changes how we remember history. And occasionally, the real story is even darker than the fairy tale. If you enjoy documentaries that dig beneath the myths, be sure to subscribe and join the Pizzaverse. We don't just repeat popular stories. We trace them back to the people, places, and events that inspired them. From forgotten empires and legendary rulers to organized crime, Hollywood history, folklore, and the psychology behind the world's greatest villains, there's always another mystery waiting to be uncovered. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss the next investigation. Because around here, we don't rewrite history. We excavate it. Thank you for watching. Your time, your support, and your curiosity help keep independent history documentaries alive. Whether you've been here since the beginning or this is your first visit to the Pizzaverse, we're grateful you chose to spend part of your day with us. Until next time, stay curious, question the legends, and remember, the greatest stories ever told usually begin with a grain of historical truth.
Pizzaverse Studios public service announcement. Bambi derangement syndrome. Every year, thousands of internet users suffer from a rapidly spreading condition known as Bambi-Palermo derangement syndrome, or as medical professionals call it, why the hell are you so obsessed with this woman? Symptoms may include refreshing Facebook every 11 seconds, screenshotting live streams like FBI evidence, writing angry paragraphs at 3:14 mm, creating fake accounts with names like Becky G, Totally Not Jealous 1977, becoming emotionally unstable after seeing somebody drink espresso and mind their business, and experiencing severe psychological distress anytime Bambi Palermo appears happy. Researchers believe the condition begins when the affected individual spends too much time online and slowly replaces hobbies, friendships, sunlight, and emotional maturity with internet obsession. In advanced cases, patients may begin monitoring every live stream, counting likes and comments like casino accountants, arguing with strangers about people they've never met, or speaking the phrase, "She thinks she's famous," approximately 94 times per week. Warning signs include unexplained jealousy, chronic bitterness, fake positivity masking deep rage, and a terrifying inability to simply scroll past content they dislike like a normal human being. Doctors describe the condition as a full psychological hostage situation caused by social media exposure and untreated envy. Dr. Christian Zentilli, many patients convince themselves they're exposing somebody, when in reality they're just spending 8 hours a day staring at another woman's profile while their laundry rots in the dryer. But there is hope. With proper treatment, many sufferers eventually recover and return to normal society. Recommended treatments include touching grass, drinking water, developing real-life goals, logging off Facebook for more than 17 consecutive minutes, and learning that another woman existing online is not a federal emergency. If you or somebody you love suffers from Bambi Palermo derangement syndrome, please seek help immediately. Because the internet was never supposed to become your entire personality. Brought to you by Pizzaverse Studios. Documenting internet madness so future historians don't have to.
trying to pull their wings off so they can't fly. And oh, but she's so brave though, just like a tornado. She's taking us by storm. You can't stop the girl from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. Oh, you can't stop the girl from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. Oh, you can't stop the girl. They're trying to take our voices, they're trying to make our choices, so we scream loud, loud, loud. And oh, I know you feel the lightning, and it's so exciting, so here we come. You can't stop the girl from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop the girl from going. You can't stop the world from knowing. The truth will set you free. You can't stop the girl. You can't stop the girl. You can't stop the girl. No, you can't stop the girl. Oh, I know you feel the lightning, and it's so exciting, so here we come.